All right, the NFC South. New Orleans is the favorite, plus 130. Their over-under is 9.5, 17-1 for the conference, minus 188 for the playoffs. I instinctively, in June and July and for most of August, was out on New Orleans because I thought Derek Carr looked kind of semi-shot last year, and I was just, New Orleans is old, the cap, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, I'm gonna go Atlanta or Carolina, and that's where I'm heading. And then Carolina quickly became appalled. We'll talk about them in a second.
Right.
And I just couldn't get there with Atlanta with Ritter because I watched all those games. And I know Atlanta's like the sexy pick. The football nerds are in and whatever. And look at this. And but Merritt is so bad. Is Ritter going to be better than Derek Carr? No. The worst version of Derek Carr, Ritter's not going to be better than. What are the odds that Derek Carr maybe he's just better this year. Maybe he needed to get out of Las Vegas. Maybe he wasn't vibing with McDaniels. He's young enough that I could see him going to New Orleans. He's playing a ton of games indoors. They have the easiest schedule in the league.
Right.
He's got good receivers. Kamara's coming back for week 4. I talked myself into them. Their schedule is so easy. It's like staggering.
Yeah.
And that was it. I think they go 10-7. I think they hit the over.
I have it even better at 11-6. And I think you and I approach it the same way. You look for the best quarterback coach combination, and you're not going to find it in the NFC South. You're not going to find
Dennis Allen.
Right. Okay. So even taking the Saints, I'm going to admit that, right? It's kind of a joke. He's 15-38, but I still think Carr is capable. I think they surrounded him with some nice pieces. Honestly, if you're being honest, I'm not talking about Bryce Young 4 years from now. If you want one quarterback on any team in the NFC South, you would take Derek Carr, right? So they gave him the $60 million. You don't need Michael Thomas to be your main guy. He could be the third option.
Well, that's the thing. If Olave becomes kind of semi-special, which I think he showed a lot of signs of last year, that's the other thing for them.
Yeah. Juwan Johnson's nice at tight end. That Shaheed guy they like. Joe Woods is a defensive coordinator.
They signed our guy Jamal Williams.
Yeah. Jamal Williams, a goal line back. So I think they're going to be pretty good, and they have really good secondary with Lattimore and Matthew. They one of the few teams we just talked about that have a good defense. So I'll go defense and quarterback. Not sure about the coach. Gets me to the Saints winning the division.
Well, also, they have a good offensive line. It's not top 5, but it's probably like top 8.
Right.
And Carr last year, did not have a good offensive line. They only one good lineman.
Cold weather games early. I'm looking at that.
Yep.
Only 3 prime time. Under the radar team. They're going to do good.
I write down the hard games for each team that seem hard. And for them, I only had at Green Bay, at New England, at Atlanta, and at the Rams and at Tampa. And the Rams and Tampa aren't even good.
Yeah.
So you just can't get there. And they play Detroit at home. They play Tennessee at home. The schedule, they're playing all the bad teams in the league. And I don't see how they won't go 10-7.
This might be an adjusted, this could be an adjusted win thing for us, right?
Well, I saw the 11 plus wins is plus 210, which I thought was pretty enticing.
Yeah.
The 1 seed is 17-1. That seems a little outrageous, but they'd probably have to go 13-4. I'm not ready to do that. But Carr was good 2 years ago. I don't know what happened to him last year. He looked like a shot boxer.
Right.
And he just looked like he didn't want to get hit anymore.
He'll lose a game that he shouldn't.
Yeah, and people freak out.
But I'm too in on Carr. I have over 22.5 touchdown passes.
Yeah.
I have a minus 165. FanDuel has by division. You could bet who's going to be the top passer by the division. Carr to have the most passing yards in the NFC South. I like that.
Atlanta is next. This was the single hardest team for me. And I changed my mind, I would say 130 times. The over-under is 8.5.
You want to think about it a little more?
I might. Plus 210 for the division. Last year, they were 7-10. They took Bijan Robinson with the 8th pick, which was just bizarre, but then also kind of awesome.
Yeah.
But it was the best spot on their team because they had Tyler Algier, they had Cordell Patterson.
1,700 yards between those guys.
So I wasn't looking at that team going, what they need a running back, but he's going to be really fun to watch. Defense, they took Bates from Cincinnati. They added all these starters, whatever. House is excited about it. I can't get there with Ritter. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But from what I saw, and I bet on 2 of the games, and I just didn't see it. I don't know what he's good at.
Yeah.
So I can't get there. So I actually have them slightly over at 9-8 because the schedule's so easy.
After that, all that.
I had 5 hard games at Detroit, at Jacksonville, at Tennessee, at Chicago, and at New Orleans. That's it for hard games. And at Chicago might not even be a hard game, but their home games are ludicrous. Green Bay's their hardest home game.
You know, they have 0 rest advantage. They don't have a rest advantage in any game.
Well, because
that kind of matters.
You know what? You know why? Because they play every Sunday.
Yeah.
They're just Sunday in the afternoon, every game. They have
Sunday, 1 o'clock.
They have one London game in week 4, but other than that, it's just 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock every week for the rest of the season.
And the Bears and Jets on the road in December is not ideal, I think. Yeah, this is the one that jumped out at me when these come out in April.
Yeah.
I saw Atlanta 8.5. I was like, oh my God. Why?
Yeah, that seemed too high.
I know they were gamers last year for a while, but yeah, I'm with you. I don't think Robinson, I think you draft a running back that early if you're one piece away from making it to the Super Bowl, and they're not. And like we said, they had Patterson and Algier who were good. I think they screwed up. They had a lot of cap space. They could have gone after Lamar Jackson, and I think they're going to regret not doing so. This is the most hyped non-playoff team in the NFC.
Yeah.
I think, maybe next to the Lions.
I don't feel 100% on it. I'll say that. Like if they went 10-7 and Ritter turned out to be a little better than we saw last year, I'm not going to be shocked.
Right. Yeah, well, these South divisions suck.
I just think New Orleans is a safer bet.
Yeah.
But I don't feel good about any of this. I certainly wouldn't bet on it. I will bet on the next thing, though. I think Carolina's going to suck. And once we decided we were doing this Sunday show for FanDuel TV, then I'm super excited about this live pregame gambling show with you and Raheem and House and JJ. We all ended up on this text thread.
Right.
And I was in Boston with my daughter. And I was listening to their podcast.
This is like a parent corner, but you're Joe House's parent.
It's a Joe House parent corner.
Yeah.
And House was saying, he mentioned a couple times that Frank Reich was a good coach, and now that Frank Reich is there, and it turned into this 4-hour text fight because there is 0 evidence that Frank Reich is a good coach. 0. And then House, who does a podcast this week, and now he's like, you know who could have the worst record in the league? Carolina. And just basically pees all over my Carolina stuff. And Frank Reich, 0-4-1 in opening weeks. And
oh, man.
Classic,
what did he say? I forgot.
Bet take stealer, Joe House.
Yeah. Bet take stealer.
But he went from Frank Reich was the best coach in the. Anyway, I'm mad at House. House and I are in a fight. I'm going to deprive him of spare ribs.
So just go under.
But Frank Reich is a bad coach. There's no evidence that he's a good coach.
Mm-hmm.
He was bad in Indianapolis. They had a different quarterback every year that he brought. The team was underprepared. He was so bad that his owner fired him and hired a guy from TV thinking they'd be better off.
Yep.
And then he goes to Carolina, like quarterback whisperer, Frank Reich. He's a quarterback whisperer. This Nick Foles thing, Nick Foles winning the Super Bowl because the Patriots had Matt Patricia, who's one of the worst coaches of all time in any sport. And Nick Foles looks good. And then it becomes Frank Reich, quarterback whisperer. All he did was run quarterbacks into the ground in Indianapolis over and over again. Yeah. Phil Rivers did the best, and he ended up retiring. Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, Jacoby Brissett, pick a quarterback. They all look terrible. Their offensive line was just getting annihilated in the preseason. I feel bad for Bryce Young because I like Bryce Young, and I like this Carolina team last year. I think they're going to stink.
Wow. So 3 or 4 wins, put them in the bottom there?
I have them at 4-13.
Interesting. I had them at 7, but you might have convinced me now to put it at 0. I don't know. And as bad as Reich has been, and you brought that up, but this GM, Tepper, this GM is on the hot seat. Just 5 seasons, 5 quarterbacks, plus hired Matt Rule. So it's got to work out eventually for this. But how could it? New head coach, new OC, new DC, new quarterback isn't usually a good formula.
Well, remember
I'm going under here.
They were 21-0 against Tampa.
Yeah.
And they kind of stumbled into a recipe. We were betting on them a bunch of times, second half of the year, where they were this power run game, not asking Darnold to do too much. Their defense is actually pretty good. Like I had 6 chippers on the team: Brown, Burns, Thompson, Luvo, Horn, and Chin. Like their defense is going to keep them in games, which is why maybe they get a little higher. I just think they're going to have the worst offense in the league. They have the worst skill position guys in the league.
They had Thielen, Sanders.
Thielen's done. Right. Those guys are done. They have no run game.
I'm with you.
And Bryce Young, rookie QB, just running for his life.
And they got the defensive like J.C. Horn and Dante Jackson both missed 10 games over the last 2 years. So.
But it's interesting. They blow that Tampa game, and they should have won. Wilkes gets fired. that Tampa limps into the playoffs. Your team destroys them, and then
Yeah.
Brady retires. But like they should have beaten Tampa, and then Wilkes probably stays. I don't know what they do with the Bryce Young pick. Maybe they trade it.
Well, should our overall, before we even get to Tampa, advice for people betting the NFC South be to just sit back for a little bit? I feel like we changed our minds 3 times.
Don't do it.
And the best
I do like
quarterback
New
in
Orleans,
football
though.
barely won it, ended up winning it, you know?
I do like New Orleans, though.
Yeah.
So
All right, their
are you
odds
in
aren't
on New
gonna
Orleans?
get- Yeah, I
don't
New
mind
Orleans
the
to win the division.
even odds.
But it's an infuriating division. It really is.
Yeah, this is definitely like don't throw anyone from this division in a tease because God only knows.
No.
Tampa, they're over under 6.5. I got slight under. I have them like 5-12, 6-11.
I have
somewhere
them
there.
6. Yeah, there's not a ton to like about them.
Worst quarterback situation in the league, right?
Yeah,
Kyle Trask, Baker Mayfield.
and Baker. Yeah, it's his 4th
I can't
team.
say I'm a huge Todd Bowles fan.
He's definitely right up there, first coach fired. 4th team since last June for Baker. That's almost impossible. And I just don't know what kind of identity. I told you, like, Brady threw like 733 passes last year.
Yeah.
And they had 1,300 rushing yards. So I don't know. This could be it for Bowles. Still big names, which is weird, right? It's Evans, it's Godwin. People get excited for that. Devin White, Shaq Barrett, Levante David.
Worse.
Yeah, and I don't think it adds up. I really don't. I have them 6
Yeah,
wins.
I'm wondering if it goes the other way where maybe they become a seller around week 5, week 6 and try to get into the
They did what the Rams did, right? They mortgaged the future for a Super Bowl, and they got it.
their schedule. They week 11 to 15, they're at San Francisco, at Indianapolis, at Atlanta, and at Green Bay. So they actually have 6 road games out of 8 going from week 8 to week 15, starting with at Buffalo on a Thursday in week 8. I just think they're going to
Yeah, that's what's killer because they play a first place schedule.
Yeah.
And they're projected to come in 4th. Their extra games are Philly, at San Francisco, and at Buffalo. It doesn't get worse than that.
So before we leave the NFC South, what's the highest possible record Atlanta would get and the lowest possible record? Because I really am intrigued by them. Like I could see them be, if Ritter could just out of nowhere be like what Kenny Pickett was doing in the last 4 games of last year. Because they are talented and they can block and they do have weapons. And I like their coach.
I'm so against them. I have them minus 120 to not make the playoffs.
I'm with you. But could you see them going 6-11?
Yeah, that's what I have.
Could you see them going 11-6?
Nah, I don't know.
Okay.
But this division, like I said, don't be surprised and try not to watch it unless they play your favorite team.
Something worries me about them.